Hello, everyone. You are watching the Tech Authority with Rich Tehrani. On our program today is Andy Abramson. He's the founder and CEO of Comunicano. Andy, how are you?
It's always good to see you, Rich. I'm great.
It is fantastic to speak with you as well. I've interviewed you probably more than anyone else, or at least right up there, and I always learn so much. And the audience as well, they really cherish the opportunity to hear your wisdom and your knowledge. And so that's why I'm thrilled to have you on the program. We're going to talk today about a whole bunch of things, but we'll kick it off with AI agents. God, there's so much excitement around that topic, isn't there?
If 3 years ago it was generative AI, 2 years ago it was conversational AI, this is the year of AI agents, and I don't think we're done yet. When you look at the pace in which artificial intelligence and the services and all of the applications that are out there now, and all of the changes that we're seeing in how things work, it reminds me of the very early days of the internet. I said 3 years ago when ChatGPT came online from OpenAI, that was the Netscape moment for artificial intelligence, comparing it to how the internet would be accessed differently. Well, artificial intelligence began to be accessed differently. It was AI for the rest of us. But if you look at how far we've come with all of the various players ranging from Anthropic to OpenAI to Perplexity to Microsoft to Salesforce, and then even in our own backyard in telecom with things like Dialpad. I'm a shareholder in Dialpad. Always say that so the FTC doesn't get mad. The reality is that the pace in which artificial intelligence has progressed has trumped everything we know to date in the Industrial Revolution, in the Internet Revolution.
And you go back years in tech, right? You had a radio show. You were, one of the first bloggers about topics like VoIP, and then you evolved into other spaces. I mean, you have a background in sports, and you moved on into tech, and you know it as well as just about anyone out there. So you really have a unique perspective. If you were to compare this to just the dot-com growth, forget about the overvaluation and the bubbleness of that time. Like how farther ahead are we right now in terms of just the opportunity compared to what the if you look at the dot-com time as going from like the late 1990s to 2010 when stuff really started to take off, like where do you see us now?
So if you look at the internet becoming the World Wide Web in 1993, 94 with Tim Berners-Lee, and then you look at Netscape coming, Mark Andreessen and the group out of University of Illinois, Urbana or Champaign, whichever one it was, what they did. My reaction that day was when I downloaded Netscape, wow, AOL just died. Now, of course, AOL lasted for many years later. As a matter of fact, it finally ended dial-up next month. But Netscape killed AOL that day, in my mind. And I see the same thing with artificial intelligence and how it's transforming industries across the board, but also not only transforming, creating new ones, and most importantly, allowing an individual to create a business that is as valuable as a startup that would take 3 to 5 years to scale just because of inertia. But at the same time, what we're also seeing is a lot of things start, they're very useful, and then something else comes along and leapfrogs it, which is no different than the internet. The difference is, and I should say no different than any internet-enabled business, e-commerce, telecom, it's the speed in which things are changing. So look at things like MCP servers. We didn't even know what an MCP server was because it didn't exist a year ago. Out came Anthropic late last year. Now MCPs are the ways things communicate, and there's a bunch of companies doing things from authentication and data transfer that used to require an engineer and a developer and an API and an API key. And now all you got to do is say, I'm a Google customer, connect this to that. Oh, I use Notion, I use Slack, I use these different tools, connect them, and then you go in and say, I would like you to take my information from here, move it to here, write a letter to all these customers who meet this criteria, and send it. Well, I just destroyed CRM, because now the CRM is nothing more than a flat repository, which is why all the companies like HubSpot and Salesforce are racing so fast around generative AI, conversational AI, and of course now agent AI, or they call it agentic AI.
Yeah, the whole notion of vibe coding, which is kind of the AI version of something I've been a champion of for at least 10 years, the what we called the citizen developer. It's the vibe coder, the concept that with a single prompt you can actually get a computer program or an entire website or an app built out. And I think one of the more interesting ones I've seen is the single prompt on ChatGPT 5 that allowed someone to design an app on an iPhone that lets you find all the coffee shops on a map
Right.
within 10 miles. And that was
Yeah.
a single prompt. There was an error
Mhm.
that Apple kicked it back. I think the iPad Air didn't work right with it. And so he fed that back into ChatGPT. He doesn't know how to code, and it pumped back out the code. Apple approved it within a day or so. And so basically, within a couple days, he had something on the App Store. And when I tell people about it, it's funny. They tell me, "Wow, that's really interesting. How can I download it?" Like, in other words, it's a useful app. It's not like crap is being developed. I was listening to the CEO of Replit on a recent interview, and Replit is kind of like an environment for vibe coders, and he said he is trying to get 1 billion people to be coding, and if they have domain expertise, I think that's extremely ambitious, and I think that's a great marketing slogan. I don't think it's going to happen, but the point is that what he was saying is that if you have some kind of knowledge, some kind of expertise, domain expertise, you use a platform like his or Lovable or whatever, and you can make apps, you can make solutions. And I think that's what's so exciting to me.
Well, I built a website about myself. One of the things I love to do whenever these new services come along is give it the acid test and see how close it gets to me, about, because I know my history better than anybody, obviously. I lived it. So I used one of the sites called GenSpark. And I said, go out on the internet and find everything you can about Andy Abramson and build a website based on his career. And I gave it a little bit more prompting, like, be sure to include things that he's done, any awards that he's received, and start from the beginning of his career. Well, it built a beautiful website faster than I could hire a developer to do. I didn't have to really go out and supply the information to the developer. The information was gathered and it was correct. And I said, okay, publish. I did another thing with Manus where I asked it to roadmap my career for the highlights. It didn't get all of them, but it got enough of them that I'm proud to use it, because it shows a strategic direction dating back to, well, not being the 14-year-old kicking the brooms out of the locker room in 74 at the Spectrum, but it did go back to my days with the Philadelphia Flyers, creating the first ever fan development organization in professional sports. I think it may have recognized the Nokia blogger program that you were in from 2005 to 2010.
Yeah, I should just quickly say a word about that. You were in charge of their blogger relations. I was a blogger, and then you, at the time when these devices were relatively new, you told Nokia, if you really want to get these devices written about, you've got to send them to the bloggers.
Right.
And this was now that this may seem commonplace, right? People get samples, bloggers, influencers, but this is way back when the word influencer was not, I think it was maybe a half a decade or a decade away from being in the dictionary.
We started using the term influencers in 2007, 2008 with Nokia. One of their executives, Damien Stefanikis, said, we'd like to use the word influencer, not blogger. And I said, okay. But up until then, 2005, there had never been a Fortune 100 company putting their name on a social media program. So much so there was another brand we were working with that went to great lengths to not admit they were involved in social media. But the great thing about what we did then, and I see a lot of parallels today, is we didn't pay any of the bloggers, not you, not O'Malley, not Kevin Toffel, not James Kendrick, may rest in peace, not Matt Miller, not Michael Arrington, not Alex Saunders, not Phone Boy, not oh God, the list goes on and on and on. Jason's Tech Graver. What I'm saying is, we didn't pay any of them to review the products or to comment on what Nokia was doing. We simply supplied them with a device and another one and another one. So when I look at what's going on with AI, I see a very similar pathway, that the brands that are embracing these new ideas, just like the brands that embraced influencer relations, will progress and will ultimately succeed. The other thing that I'm seeing is the speed in which you can sift, sort, and assemble information when you learn how to structure your prompts. But I always laugh when people say, "Yeah, I went to ChatGPT and I asked it to do blank." I go, "Yeah, but did you give it an example of what the output should be and how you want it structured?" No. Did you build your own custom GPT telling it what it was, how to operate, what it should do, what it shouldn't do, the way it should behave? Did you give it reference materials that you established? No. Did you? I compare all that to, like, I went to the ice cream store and I got chocolate or vanilla ice cream, but I didn't get any swirls, I didn't get any sprinkles, I didn't get any fruit, I didn't get any chocolate sauce. I just got chocolate or vanilla ice cream when there were 30 some flavors at the ice cream store, and 175,000 different combinations of what you could have had. Well, with OpenAI and ChatGPT and Claude and all these things, you have the ability to make that ice cream cone the way you want, or that any way you want it to be, and to give you the right output. And I don't mean it's going to do exactly, it's not going to do your bidding, depending
Right.
on structure the prompts. Well, with agentic AI or AI agents now, it's even more than that. And that's why I laugh when people just go, "Oh, you may have read my blog post. I hate when people say, oh, you're using that AI stuff." Well, the answer is yes, proudly. But I'm using AI well beyond what the normal person does just by going into the search box of ChatGPT or Anthropic and saying, I'm giving it very specific skill sets, instruction sets. I might say, you are not an assistant. You are not to do this. You are not to do that. You are simply going to correct my grammar and make it stylistically correct for this type of audience. But that doesn't mean go out and look for more stuff. It means use just what I gave you. Versus, this is what I know, go tell me other things about it. And then you build tools. I have one thing every day. I wake up, I have my entire calendar in an email. It tells me who I'm meeting with. It has links to their profiles. It has notes tied to emails that we have corresponded with. And it's all the way I want it, not the way some other companies designed a service. I have another one which goes through all of the media queries that come through SOS and Harrow, and it pulls out the ones that are relevant to the audiences that my clients or I want to speak to. Well, I don't have to read through Harrow 4 times a day. I get this nice summary. It's all distilled. But I wrote that agent. I went out and used it with Slashley or Den or Dave. These are all terms. And now today, Rube came out, which works with Claude. And these things are doing my bidding for me. And I've got more time to do things like this.
It's fantastic. And really, I think the culmination of a lot of this technology and how you can learn about it is going to be featured at the AI Asian event, which takes place September 29th through 30th in Herndon, Virginia, right by Washington, D.C. And you're going to be part of it. You're going to be speaking, participating. We're thrilled to have you there. And we've got really this unbelievable lineup. I'm the conference chairman of the event. TMC, the company behind IT Expo, is also behind it, where I'm CEO. So we're thrilled to have you as part of it. And like a lot of these things that you're talking about are going to be discussed. You're going to get that education. Just as importantly, you're also going to get some great education on the legal issues that are arising from integrating AI into your environment and how you can protect yourself so you don't you don't make mistakes. So we're really, really pumped about this event, Andy.
You know, it's funny. There's some lawyers I know who don't like calls to be transcribed or recorded, and I think that horse has left the barn. We're all recording. We're all transcribing. We're using it not as just a permanent record of what was discussed, but like when I take a conference call and I have anywhere from 3 to 5 AI agents backing me up, each looking at the call differently. Now, you might say, Andy, why do you need 3 to 5? Well, I've got them all programmed to analyze the call in different ways, the way different people, one might be a copywriter, one might be a creative director, one might be a crisis management person, and I'm getting these outputs so that the next time I want to call, I'm able to consolidate all that and boil it down to what are the most important things I need to speak to or speak about. Now, could I do one super prompt like that? Yeah, but it chokes because then it's using too many tokens because I'm asking it to do all of these things versus breaking it down. And that's the other thing with all these agents. You need to break it down into small component parts, not try to have it boil the ocean. We used to talk about that, the internet era, that some companies try and boil the ocean, Rich. The more you break it down, the more granular you can do it, the deeper it goes, which is what I'm looking for, depth, not surface level stuff.
And that's a really good tip for people listening. The future is definitely. I mean, you can call them maybe swarms of AI agents. It's akin to what's happening with military innovation, and that is that 2 3 years ago, the U.S. military was pretty much unmatched because of our large boats that had a lot of aircraft capacity and landing capacity and takeoff capacity and cruise missile capacity. But we've seen the rapid rise of drones, and drone swarms can take out large objects. So basically, we've effectively shifted the way warfare is fought. And I'd say it's the same thing in business, that we're going to have teams of these AI agents working together to accomplish projects. And here's what's really interesting. They say IT is the new HR, and to some degree, that is kind of what we're going to see, where humans are going to be interacting with teams of agents, and teams of humans will be working with teams of agents. And figuring out that workflow is not trivial, and it's certainly prone to potential issues. There was an article yesterday that came, or maybe a couple days ago, from Gartner, where they said 40% of enterprise apps will have AI agents in them just next year. I mean, it's unbelievable how fast the growth is, and we've never seen anything like this, right? But they did say, and the bottom bullet is the one that's the most interesting to me, up to 40% of the projects may be canceled in a year because of unclear ROI, governance challenges, and potentially excessive hype. So how do you avoid like the failure? And I think that to me is the biggest reason to come to an event, is like, how do you avoid getting caught up in things that don't work, or minimize your potential for failure, so that you can keep your career intact, keep your company intact, and just maximize value, return on investment.
Let me put the Comunicano hat on here for a second about that. Bring that slide back up because I want to explain the bottom bullet point to everybody. So Gartner, you understand what their business is. One of the things they do is they help businesses understand how to get return on investment. Number two, bringing up governance challenges. They help with the assistance of lawyers in the regulatory space navigate through what governance challenges could be, the same way any large consulting company or any large law firm would do. And an excessive hype, Gartner has what's called the Gartner hype cycle, where they have this whole chart they show about the trough of disillusionment. So these three things that they're talking about are all about selling Gartner, not about selling the problem. Number two, Rich, I don't believe that 40% of agentic products will be canceled by 2027. I think more than 40% will be. I think that one of the reasons why they'll be canceled is because technology will have advanced to whatever agentic AI was today in 2025. It's going to look a lot different in 2027 because of the built-in obsolescence, which is already occurring, just as we've seen where apps come out and apps get cannibalized. The thing you were talking about, the coffee shop, there's a prompt you can use in any of the basic. You can use it in Gemini, you can use it in Claude, you can use it in Anthropic or Grok. That will do exactly that. You don't need an app on your phone. Just go into one of those apps and say, I want a list of coffee shops within 3 miles of me, within a 5 mile, or with so many minutes walking. So the apps like that are quickly being outmoded and made out of date before they're published. We used to talk about that the manual is outdated before it gets delivered. Well, with agentic AI, the leaps and bounds which we will see over the next 24 months will make that statement irrelevant. On the other hand, on the governance issues, we are farther ahead governance wise. And right now, the way the US system is operating, we will be more wide open. Right now, China is the Wild West. They have far more freedoms over there, believe it or not, when it comes to this kind of stuff. They're not bound by the same copyright laws they are here. But if you look at what they're doing over there, if you use a site like DeepSeek, if you use Manus or use an agent platform like GenSpark, it's got a lot more latitude than what the US-based companies are able to do because of fear of copyright law and oversight, though they're pushing the envelopes too. Europe is about the most tightly wound environment right now and will be the loser in all of this. We're not going to go more in that direction. We're going to go further away. And current administration, and I'm not going to be political whether you support the president and his administration or not, but the current administration is far more hands-off to let more things happen, to enable more development, to enable more advancement here in the United States, which I'm all for. I want to see a very strong United States. So we're at a very interesting inflection point geopolitically where artificial intelligence is a different animal in different parts of the world. It's why Apple releases things in stages in order to comport with the different localized laws that they have to with one global operating system. Google the same way, IBM the same way. So even Amazon. So we don't have the same flavor. I'm looking forward to whenever I take my next trip to Europe to see how I'm able to do the same thing on my phone or when I'm connected to the internet from over there that I can over here. Or do I need to run a VPN? Or do I need to install LLMs locally on my devices? I don't know. I'm interested in finding out though.
Yeah, it's interesting what's happening just with the EU, and right now the race is between the US and China, and India most recently has said that they want to get involved, and they want to be a powerhouse in AI as well, which is, they've got some very, very talented people that tend to come to the US. So many of them have become successful, or in other parts of the world as well. So we'll see. You can't count them out, even though they haven't really been a leader in AI up until now. But yeah, it's a two-person race for now, and the more the merrier, right? The more innovation there is. A lot of the stuff that China's doing, it actually is devaluing the software, and it's adding more value to the hardware, right? And so that's kind of where they make their money. So that for them, that's fine. But that's not necessarily great, right? Some of these things you talked about, right? Manus, lower cost than what we have in the U.S., and some of these other solutions, DeepSeek, right? A lot cheaper than some of the solutions in the U.S. And like you said, they don't have the same copyright restrictions, but they have other restrictions, right? They've got their great firewall restrictions. So there are some pros and cons to their information access. And so ultimately, what we're going to see is the enterprise is the winner, right? So the consumer and the enterprise is the winner because there's this competition to do whatever you can to come out with the best models, the most efficient models, and then there's this layer on top of the models, and the models themselves are really good as well, right? If you can just tell a model, make me an app, but there are layers on top, things like Replit and Lovable and others that add so much value to these platforms. And then you're talking about the concept of CRM replacement. Well, even if it's not CRM replacement, CRM integration is certainly something that not all companies have their CRM integration the way they want it. or they don't have it optimally designed. So I'd say the first step is, throwing up these MCP servers, connecting AI to some of these knowledge bases you have, and then in trying to use the information within these stores to maybe ascertain better ideas about what your customers are doing. Who are your potential new clients that you're not thinking about that are in your prospect database? Things like that. And then from there, just integrating all of these different separate knowledge repositories together. I mean, there's so much opportunity for companies. You almost don't know where to start, and I think that's why events really do make sense.
Event
And I
makes,
know, go ahead. I'm sorry, Andy.
event makes total sense. I'll give you an example of how things are outmoded. We've all used Adobe to take a PDF and convert it to an Excel file or a Word file or a PowerPoint. Well, somebody sent me a really interesting chart. There was a PNG file. I really can't do much with a PNG file with Adobe to convert the data from a PNG. I'd have to somehow get it into a PDF, and it would take a while to do that. Well, all I did was I threw it into one of the AI tools, ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, and I said, make this into an Excel spreadsheet. And a minute later, I had a perfectly formatted Excel spreadsheet with 13 columns of data and many, many rows of organizations on the left-hand side. And I was thinking how long it would have taken a skilled typist to do that. And it would have been a good half hour or more. And I did it in seconds. Well, once you turn that into an agent where you just have an automatic feed it, like in the old days, we'd scan something in, put it on a jump drive, move we still didn't have it in Excel or Word or whatever we wanted. Well, I can do more than that. Now, once I've built that table, I can then ask it to analyze it, sort it, sift it. But I can also write an agent that does everything from the importing of the quote scanned file to the creation of the spreadsheet to the manipulation of the data on the spreadsheet for a series of what ifs that are because all the information I'm getting. So if you're getting annual information that's statistical from any organization, and you know what you have to ask it, well, you don't have to wait to go find the online access to it. You just find the hard copy, take a picture, send it in, and let the AI agent go to town on it. You just replaced analysts.
Yeah. I'd say so. That's maybe when you look at AI agents, right? You've got the productivity, you've got the potential savings on new hires, which it's the you're not supposed to say it. The reality is technology has always replaced people, but it's also made people more productive and efficient, which means lowering the cost to start new businesses, which makes you're kind of lubricating the business starting mechanism and or economy. And so companies have two really solid reasons to be implementing this, and the third is cost containment and cost reduction. Ultimately, if everyone but you is on the leading edge of AI, you're going to have higher costs than they are. And there's another thing as well which gets talked about, the 10-time developer or the 10-time employee, where the output of your existing team can grow by 10 times. So to say that you have to let people go is not necessarily the case, or that you're going to hire less, because if everyone's doing 10 times more, and if you're faster than your competitor into these new markets, are you going to be growing, right? So I mean, maybe it's a zero sum game, but maybe it's not. Because markets are expanding, which means opportunity is expanding. Andy, some of the things you were just talking about, some of the applications of AI, where you have PNG files or bitmap files that you have to try to get into a spreadsheet. There are a lot of things that business didn't do because it wasn't cost effective to do at
Right.
all. So that's almost like this untapped market. We never talk about it. You don't hear people discuss it, but that in and of itself is a massive productivity booster, and it may be worth throwing a team of humans on top of AI to get that project done,
Right.
because now there's massive amounts of information that's getting sifted through and then converted to, let's say, Excel spreadsheets. And when there are errors or conflicts or issues, then the team of humans looks at it, but it's something you couldn't do, right? You just or it was just cost prohibitive. You would maybe send it offshore to India, or you send it to the Philippines. But even there's work that was too expensive for that for them. So a
We
lot of
used,
opportunity.
we used to joke when I was in the media sales business that we could take the same proposal, this is back in the day of sports, and hand it to two different media planners inside the same agency and get two different media valuations from them for two different clients based on how they were looking at it. We can now take the same criteria of how they do it, feed the proposal in, and have an answer back in seconds, not weeks. And because the body of knowledge that already exists within the organization knows how to evaluate the information that's being presented and can take other real time data and apply that to help make a meaningful decision. So agents in AI, Rich, are going to not necessarily replace the human. They're going to make the human, they're going to provide the human with greater abilities to do the valuable work that they need to do and remove the human from the equation of doing the scut work that they don't need to be doing.
Yeah, it's really going to be a wild ride, and that's why I just wanted to invite everyone who is on this video or watching this video to the AI Agent event. It's just simply aiagentevent.com, and it's September 29th through 30th, and it's going to be in Herndon, Virginia, which is right by Washington D.C. So register now. We hope to see you there, and looking forward to many years of increased productivity, ROI, business growth. And Andy, I'm looking forward to seeing you in person as well.
Always looking forward to seeing you, Dave, Michael, Eric, and Natasha, and the whole crew from TMC who puts on a great show. If we can get a third of what you had this year at IT Expo in Fort Lauderdale at your very first AI agent event, that's going to be a home run for me. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody there. I'm going to have some panels. I'm going to have some fireside chats. We're going to dive deep into what you need to know, and I'll apply my look around the corner over the mountain insight to drill down on getting what people need to say, not what they want to say. Because as Rich knows, message point journalism doesn't make it to my stage.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're definitely the king of moderators, and I always love to see you work, and to the benefit of the audience. So thanks for participating, and to everyone, thanks for watching. If you're still watching, we appreciate it, and we'll see you in a little bit, in about a month plus.
Thanks, Rich.
Take care. Bye bye.